So we're back for part 3. Once again, I left you a clue. Here's the clue. The fact that I had that valve cover off. You see how nice that valve cover looks. No, it's not because I cleaned the valve cover. Oh, maybe it was a dirty valve cover that was causing all those rough running problems. I'm being facetious. But you know, I couldn't help myself. As long as I had the valve cover off, I had to clean it. I hate ugly valve covers. But sure enough, it was something down inside the valve cover that I discovered. And I've had this situation on a number of these older V8s. You know, if you don't fix this problem, you'll never get it quite right. Now this is a very, very long timing chain on these V8 engines. It's much longer than the diesel engines. So with each stretch point of each one of these links, imagine how much that can multiply into finding a chain that may have as much as an inch. That's right, an inch of stretch. And when these chains let go, especially at speed, you're going to have all the pistons come up and hit the valves, and you're going to do extensive damage. Once again, that's called catastrophic engine failure. So when you get an engine that has a lot of chain stretch, you need to change this right away, okay? So let's check this one out. The first thing I can do is just do a lift test, and I'm going to grab a hold of it here and look at that. I'm lifting that at least an inch. Now maybe there's a problem with the tensioner, but let's go over to the other side and lift this one. This one's coming off an inch too. So I've got way too much chain stretch here. Now let me show you another thing that you can look at that will give you a good indication of excessive, I'm talking about excessive chain stretch. Roll your valve cover over and take a look at the inside of the cover right above this timing chain area, and look at that. Can you see that the chain has actually been hitting and rubbing against the valve cover? Now in severe cases, I've seen wear grooves in these valve covers, but this one's just starting to mark the valve cover. That will tell you you have excessive chain stretch and you must immediately replace this chain. Now, if you don't have any marks here and you're picking up just a little bit of chain stretch, then you might want to roll the engine over and check and see how much stretch you have in relationship to the timing marks. I won't cover that in this video. Here's another good sign that this chain is extremely stretched. Notice it's starting to wear little grooves right here and this flange on the cylinder head. Look at the chain, it's coming all the way up and hitting that. So this chain definitely needs to be replaced. Now there's one thing I need to point out here is that, as many of you mentioned, there could be a number of things wrong with this engine. I don't want to imply that the timing chain is going to fix all the problems. Right now, I need to clarify that. But I do want to change the chain because having a badly stretched chain like this throws the cam timing off and reduces vacuum, which can affect the fuel injection system. So it's kind of a vicious cycle. So there you see it. This is something you do not want to ignore. There were a lot of excellent answers in part 2 in this video series of what could be wrong to cause this engine to run as rough as it has been running. So once again, I'm not going to say that the timing chain is the only problem. It's probably a number of things. Now what I'm going to do for the sake of this video series is I'm not just going to fix everything and then come back and say, wow, look at the engine run. I normally don't do it this way, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one thing at a time, and then I'm going to run the engine and come back and report. That way, we'll be able to narrow down exactly which items I'm fixing on this engine have the most effect on how smoothly it can run. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of these Bosch Platinum spark plugs that you see here. The correct spark plugs for these older V8 engines are getting more and more difficult to find, and I think most shops, they just order whatever shows up online, and that's why you see a lot of really strange plugs in these engines. I have a plug kit and special tools and instructions on my website so you can put correct spark plugs in your engine yourself. Now I've already changed the distributor cap because it was badly corroded and had a crack in it, and that made a slight difference. So you see, this is an example of it's going to be maybe a dozen things wrong here, including things with the fuel injection system, as some of you mentioned. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish pulling these plugs out. I'm going to check the valve adjustments on the engine, and I'm going to do a compression check, and then I'm going to reinstall the plugs and then I'm going to run the engine without doing anything else. When I do that, I'll come back and let you hear the engine running, and then we'll find out just how great an effect changing the plugs will have on this 4.5 V8.